Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Reading Film Fest Q&A. We hope you enjoyed our feature documentary called Life in Synchro. I am Jack Vichnevsky, and I am, of course, joined by Chris Woodward, Associate Director and Juror Manager. And we are lucky enough to have Angela Pinaglia, Director of the film. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Thanks for watching. It's so crazy to be in a stadium playing a sports movie, so I'm very happy to be here.
Right, it's
Excellent.
very fitting. So I wanted to ask, just to get the ball rolling, what was your introduction into the sport? It's kind of a niche activity for many people, and this is a great way to spread the word about it. So what was your introduction?
Yeah, I am not a synchronized skater. I'm not even an athlete, but I had a friend. I moved here from Miami, Florida, so in Miami there's really no figure skating. And a friend of mine kept saying for years, I'm a synchronized skater. Oh, I'm going to a national champion. Oh, I won a national championship. And I literally didn't care. I feel so bad to say that now, but like, you hear synchronized skating and it like, you feel a certain way before you even know what it is, right? And so I, like most people, I'm guilty of that. But then I saw it and it changed my mind immediately. And I even turned to my friend and said, Nicole, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, I've been trying to tell you all this time. And Nicole ended up being the producer on the film. And once I recognized that there hadn't been a film done on this topic, and as you could see, it's very visually interesting to watch and also interesting to film, I'm like, let's do it. And that was 3 years ago.
So I usually start with a little broader question, but there was one segment that just gave me chills. And I guess it's the Crystalettes. Is that Emily's team?
Yeah.
And they were practicing. They all had black black suits on, black stuff, and somebody was holding a camera. Now, as background, I've been very fortunate to be involved in the running community in Reading, and we have some amazing athletes, male and female. In fact, our group, when we give awards every year, it's gender neutral. If you're the best runner of the year, it doesn't matter male or female. And we constantly, the people that are really working hard are beasts. Doesn't matter if you're male or female. And I was watching this segment where they were exercising, and I'm thinking, these women are strong, really strong. And then when I saw that on the ice watching them, there is an amazing amount of strength there. I mean, there's certainly art and dance, but when you're right there with them, it's unbelievable how strong they are and how strong you need to be. And that gave me chills. I'm getting chills now. So if you could talk about how you did that scene.
Right.
And
Well, first I just want to talk to the fact that it looks easy, but it's incredibly not easy. It's incredibly difficult. And again, I think that's what conjures up these preconceived notions of synchronized skating or just all figure skating. Like, really good skating looks effortless, right? And so that particular scene you're talking about, we put a GoPro on top of Emily. So she had, because it couldn't be on her chest. And even that was kind of tricky because she's doing a lift. And the skater was worried. The person who was being lifted was worried and concerned because she didn't want to get dropped. But that, to me, is the perfect shot that encapsulates what is required because you get a sense of the speed that they're moving on. They're not just lifting somebody. They're also moving super fast in synchronization with 15 other people on their team.
on two little thin blades.
Exactly. And let me tell you, there's blood on the ice. You don't see any blood in the movie, but many times there was blood on the ice.
I would probably watch 10 minutes of that.
Yeah.
If you have outtakes, I would watch a half an hour of it.
Right.
Very impressive.
So we spoke about how strong these women are, and I just want to know how the coaches and the instructors, how do they work to empower these women to show them that they can really be top-tier professional athletes in the entire world?
Yeah, I think that is what's really special about the sport, and I didn't recognize it until a year into it, that the reason there's kind of this generational empowerment going on is that the women that are coaches themselves were skaters once upon a time. So you see Peggy, which is the coach that was on the 1956 Hawkettes team that went on to become the first coach of a national championship, she is that role model for these younger girls. And I think they just figured it out, the women who were there early on, and those are the ones who've become kind of the godmothers of the sport. But the reason it's so empowering is precisely because it's mostly female dominated. And I think, honestly, people say, oh, what's the future of synchronized skating? I think it does include men, and it includes men at an equal amount. I just don't think for some reason just guys are not as into it at the moment, again, because of those preconceived notions, I think. But once you toss those out, where else or what other endeavor do you do in this world where you're trying to just synchronize something in perfection with 15 other people for no other reason than just to do it? Because let's be real, it's not like they're getting the recognition they deserve, right? And that to me is probably the most astounding part, is that they persevere doing this with very little confirmation, right? So it's tough.
So that's very interesting. That would be interesting to see a co-ed team working together. And like you said earlier, if you're watching it, it doesn't look that hard, but there's an amazing amount of athleticism that goes on there. What's happening with the teams now? Oh, what's their season? What's their season like?
Well, right now they would have been, they're probably first competition normally in November, right? So they are practicing. They just lifted kind of some of the restrictions on distancing because obviously they're interconnected. They're having some virtual stuff like competitions, but they will have a national championship like normal. I think they've kind of relaxed some of the rules to get there. And honestly, I haven't read the guidance that just came out this week, so I don't know the specifics of it. But just to your point about true diversity on the team, because I think one of the other takeaways, and one of the other things that maybe kept me from really engaging at the beginning, is the lack of diversity. And that's all figure skating. As you can see in my movie, there's very few people of color. And I will say this, and just like when there's only one young man or two men on a team, you know, the whole goal of watching synchronized skating is you're seeing the whole. You're seeing 16 people move across the ice at the same time. The moment one person stands out, that's where your eye naturally goes to. So to have true diversity and not be just focused on one person, we need 8 men, 8 women, non-gender, you know, non-binary, whatever it is, all colors, all sizes, and then we can get beyond somebody standing out. So that's why I think really, honest, I don't skate, I still don't skate, but I'm really excited to see where the sport's gonna be in 20 or 30 years. I think it's gonna be pretty different.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I'm sorry, Jack.
Oh, good.
There is a model because some of the summer sports, the races, I guess it's a 4x100 relay, is now co-ed, so there's 2 women and 2 men on the team.
Right.
Very, very exciting.
Right.
So for you to be around these athletes, I want to know how difficult it is for them in the sense that these are premier athletes in the world. And we heard some of the subjects speak that once they compete, then they have to go think about a job or grad school. There's no real professional scene, even though they pour their hearts into it, they're bleeding, sweating for the sport. So is that really difficult for them?
Well, I think that's why you don't see more synchronized skating. How do you financially support yourself as a synchronized skater? And I think any filmmakers in the house can sympathize because that's the same struggle we have, right? Like, how do you maintain yourself financially? How do you continue working on your craft or continue working on your sport? And to me, it's really sad that that's how Emily's story ends, right? Like, I'm not sad for her because that is the reality of all skaters, but I'm like, man, I just wish she had that next step. And I think one of the coaches, I'm pretty sure, says that, like, you know, it just can't go any further unless there is more financial support, because we don't really go into it in the documentary, but the sport is extremely expensive because you have to be an excellent skater first, right? So you have to put in the years of developing that skill, and then you have the cost of skating with the team, and when you're on the world team, you're traveling, right? And the U.S. figure skating does pay for part of that, but still, you know. So yeah, it's sad, Jack. But you know, they're also like excited, and though Emily is not going to be part of it, you know, she's hopeful, and like I think this is what you see with all the skaters. They just want to see the sport get to the Olympics so it could open that up for, you know, those who come after them.
So I was thinking about the family aspect of it. You know, you've got the family you have and the family you choose, and to talk a little bit about that camaraderie, that family. We saw a little bit when the alumni came together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I wish I had been an athlete because I could say, oh, I was like that connected to my team when I was a young person. But everyone I've talked to who has synchronized skated and done other sports say there is something very different about synchronized skating in what it does for like the team aspect. And we did read one scientific study that the physically being connected as they are and how you could literally feel it down the line when someone's nervous or excited, I think that's part of what really bonds them in a way that I just had never seen before. And it's all about community. Even when you are on an opposing team, you're still cheering that other team on because it is so close-knit, right? Like, there's not a lot of people who do this, so they're always cheering each other on. I never got a sense of like, oh, those are, you know, our competitors. It was very, just every step at every age level, just a lot of community.
If you notice us swatting at our faces and our necks and so forth, it's because we're being attacked by lanternflies up here,
Yeah.
despite the brave efforts of everybody in front of us. And if there's anybody that has a question in the audience, please come up to the mic.
Something I wanted to ask you about. So this sport is really poetry in motion. It's fluid, it's dance. I wanted to talk about the score and what the composing process was like, because it fits so well with the movements of the athletes.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much, because I didn't have any money for composition, so that was finding a lot of already pre-made songs that fit perfectly and were also within budget. I actually did at the end, there's 3 songs in the film that we don't have the full rights to, so I had to get a composer to come in, and you didn't hear those songs today, because I still really like the ones I originally picked. But that was really, that was the other tough part, is whenever they were skating, there was music, because they skate to music. They're skating to a rhythm, even if it's not the same song. That's how they practice. So there was never one without the other. Ice time is very expensive. If I was paying for the ice time, I'm sure I could have had the skating without music. But as a very low budget film production, we just couldn't afford that. So I do get a lot of compliments on the music. Thank you so much for noticing that, because I'm very satisfied that we were able to pull it off as well as we did.
Did you hear any talk, or was there anything in the teams where they were discussing, I hate to say commercial, but where they would start to get commercial support? As you see with many athletes, the women's soccer team and so forth, they have that commercial support. It allows them to do their sport. They have to do something in return, but as role models, I think, the strength, the intelligence, all of that would be, I would think, exciting for a commercial organization. Anything like that?
No, you got a little bug on your collar there. I don't know. It just flew away. All right. I did not see that. They have small the bigger teams like the Crystalettes, the Team USA teams, they do have sponsors, and I think that comes partly through their own work with their organization and then also U.S. figure skating. But I never saw that, It's a short answer, unfortunately.
And again, of course, we encourage audience members to ask a question if you have one. Something that you touched on a little bit with the scene with the GoPro, so beautiful. It's very, very eye-catching on camera. But can you talk about some of the challenges that you face shooting on ice and shooting in these rinks and trying to follow the action?
Yeah, I wish I was a skater, number one, because I would have had much better footage, but I wasn't. So, yeah, honestly, I tried to give cameras as much as I could, but these folks are not filmmakers or they're not cinematographers. So I think, the shots you do see I use sparingly, and I think that was good to get us in the moment. But the toughest part is, rinks are very dark and they're moving very fast. So anybody who then does any camera work, it's just, unless you have a really good autofocus on your camera, it's just hard to keep them in focus. And add to the fact that you don't know the program. You don't know where they're going to be on the ice at any given time. It takes time to learn the program. So it took a long time for me to figure out where they were going to be. And by the end of the season, you get a better sense. But we also weren't with them that long to we did this very sparingly shooting. We didn't have that many shoot days. I want to say we had maybe 25 shoot days. So I didn't get the time to learn the programs. But yeah, it was super challenging. But we still got some good stuff out of it. And because it is just really beautiful to look at on its own. So.
It is.
Where were the locations that you were filming?
We did a lot of Michigan and Maine. So we did a little bit in Maryland, and I'm in Baltimore, so that was nice. Also went to Connecticut and Delaware to do some pickup stuff, and then we flew out to Portland, Oregon for the championship, for Emily's championship. So that was fun.
Something that was so touching about the film is the intergenerational camaraderie. So did you have a big hand in setting that up and giving these relationships back together to people?
No, they just all really were happening naturally, and I was just really fortunate to be there and catch them at the right time. When I met Peggy, I didn't recognize how important Peggy was going to be to the story because, I knew she had been a Hawkette, and I didn't, honestly, at the beginning, I didn't know how much of that was going to be a part of the story. It's oh yeah, I'm going to make a documentary about synchronized skating. Where do you start? And that was part of the challenge. It's how much history is just the right amount? How many rules do you need to know? And then frankly, I didn't want it to be a traditional sports documentary, not because I have a problem with that, but because I feel like there was so much more going on beyond the sport, right? And it was this women empowerment. And so, obviously, the more I talked to people, the more I met people, then I started seeing the connections, and then Peggy ended up being, one of the main characters. And, for example, the Downeasters, I didn't even know they existed. They reached out to me. I did an Indiegogo when I was getting the film up and running, and they noticed it, and they sent me a Facebook message. And I say that the reason they're in the movie so much is because they gave me the access. So that makes your life so much easier as a filmmaker when you don't have to like bang, keep bugging people, hey, can I come film you? So it was, I want to say part luck, but also just hanging in there, Jack, and just hanging out and like getting to know people, that then I was able to see the connections.
I was curious, was there any moment that you captured that you just couldn't believe your luck?
Oh, when those little girls come in second place. I wasn't even there to film that team there that day. I was there to film the Fraserettes, which was the alumni team. And I'm like, oh, Fraser Cliff is here, cool. I said hi to them, and like, well, since I know them already, I'm gonna film them. And then when I just happened to be there and they came in second place, like, part of the reason I wanted them to be in the movie anyway, because I wanted to show the intergenerational, the young to old. But that was like my one winning team. Nobody else won. So I'm like, and they didn't even win technically, they came in second place, but that joy and excitement, I'm like, thank God, yeah, I was so happy to be there.
Well, compared to where they came from.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So Angela, what is next for you as a filmmaker?
Well, I'm still very much focused on life in Synchro. We're doing the film festival rounds, and we've been very fortunate that even though COVID, we've still got, some good screenings. We're working on getting on PBS, and I still think, the sport was made and supported by the synchronized skating community. Like, we raised money from them. And so to me, the mission is still to increase awareness about the sport, so how are we gonna do that? And so we're really focused on doing more community screenings and outreach that way. And, definitely got a couple other projects on the back burner that I'm starting to like work on. But I literally, my intention is still 100% still on life in Synchro. So I feel like I'm just beginning a new chapter of the movie that I didn't expect to. But I'm really grateful, and I'm glad to be here with you guys today.
We really appreciate that you thought of our Film Fest and submitted. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yes,
Thank you.
Angela Pinaglia, thank you so much, Director of Life in Synchro.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.